Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great Monday and a great day. Got lots of things to discuss on the podcast, such as the Red Wings' dominant win over the Seattle Kraken, Gautier's night in Philadelphia, and his night in Carolina, plus Eric Staal gets his number 12 retired up to the rafters, and more NHL news to come. So make sure that you stay tuned in to the end of the episode. And before I get started, I want to make sure that you guys are subscribed to the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast YouTube channel. And if you're following on Spotify, give me a follow. Same thing with Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio. I mean, makes the podcast go out to a bunch of people, and it really helps me out. So I really do appreciate it. So you just hit that little big red subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube, and give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. I really would appreciate it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the Red Wings, they put up 6 goals in their 6-2 win over the Seattle Kraken yesterday, and they won 7 in a row. They're 7-1-0 under head coach Todd McLellan since they made the coaching change, and they moved to 2018 into the season. In the first period, they scored 4 goals in the span of 4 minutes and 31 seconds from Marco Kasper, JT Compher, Alex DeBrincat, and Patrick Kane. And Eric Gustafson and Dylan Larkin, I think they also scored a goal in the win. And Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane each extended their point streak to 7 games. Alex DeBrincat has 11 points during that span, 6 goals, 5 assists for 11 points during the 7-game point streak. And my boy Patrick Kane, grew up watching him. He now has 13 points during the 7-game point streak. So 5 goals, 8 assists for 13 points during a 7-game point streak. And Cam Talbot, he made 30 saves in the win. And fun fact I should point out, Cam Talbot had played under Todd McLellan before he came to Detroit with the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. So he's quite familiar with Todd McLellan's coaching style, and he knows how, he coaches stuff. But for the Seattle Kraken, Matty Beniers and Oliver Bjorkstrand each scored for the Kraken. And, of course, Philip Grubauer, he did start this game, but he will get replaced by Joey Daccord. He allowed 3 goals on 4 shots facing net. Joey Daccord came in. He allowed the other 3 goals, but he made 16 saves. Excuse me. He made 16 saves in relief. And the Kraken, they have lost 5 of their last 6 games. And they moved to 18-23-3 the season. I should mention they were playing a back-to-back set. They were in Buffalo Saturday, and they won 6-2 in Buffalo. And then they lose 6-2 to the Detroit Red Wings. But the Kraken continue their 5-game road trip in Pittsburgh against the Penguins Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, while the Red Wings conclude their 4-game homestand against the Sharks Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, Ducks and Hurricanes. So it was Eric Staal night, but Gauthier had to spoil the night. He scored 2 goals in the Ducks' 3-2 overtime win over the Hurricanes. One of his goals ended up being the overtime game winner. He scored a minute and 52 seconds into overtime, and Anaheim moves to 18-20-5 for the season. Excuse me again. They lost 3 in a row coming in. And they were playing a back-to-back set. They were shut out by the Flyers 6-0 on Saturday. And, of course, Gauthier had to get a harsh treatment from the Flyers fans, which I will get more into depth coming up next. And Jansen Harkins scored for Anaheim as well. And Lucas Dostal, perfect in that. He made 35 saves in the win. And for the Carolina Hurricanes, Andrei Svechnikov and Seth Jarvis scored for Carolina. Seth Jarvis actually had the game-tying goal with 56 seconds remaining in the third period. And Pierre Kochetkov, he made 18 saves in the loss. Carolina won 2 in a row coming into this one, and with the loss, they moved to 26-15-3 this season. But they would head to Buffalo to take on the Sabres Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. The Ducks continue their 6-game road trip against the Capitals Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, Cody Gauthier's night in Philadelphia before he scored 2 goals, including the overtime winner in yesterday's 3-2 overtime win against the Hurricanes. His night in Philadelphia did not go so well as we all pretty much anticipated. Ducks were shut out 6-0. Samuel Eriksson made 22 saves for the Flyers. John Gibson made 24 saves for the Ducks. And take a look at Gauthier's stats in Philadelphia. In his return to Philadelphia, this is actually his first game back in Philadelphia. He had a -1, plus-minus, 13 minutes and 19 seconds of time on ice, 18 shifts. He had 3 shots on goal, and he had 2 hits. Now, before, I didn't know why he was getting all this hate, Philadelphia, but did my research, of course. And it turns out that he was actually drafted by the Flyers in the 2022 NHL draft. And then he said, you know what? I ain't going to sign with you guys. I ain't going to play with you guys. So he wanted a trade out of Philadelphia. He wanted to trade out of Philadelphia. He didn't want to play for them for whatever reason. He didn't like it there, I'm guessing. And so he wanted to trade out of Philadelphia. And they gave him his trade. He was traded to the Anaheim Ducks for Jamie Drysdale, who would score in the Flyers 6-0 shutout win over the Ducks. And of course, in his first game back, Cody Gauthier, when he stepped out on the ice, he got boos from the fans. And then every time he would touch the puck, he got boos from the fans. And the fans were also calling him an a-hole, and they were chanting F you to him. And so it was a hostile environment for Cody Gauthier because the Flyers didn't like him, like they hated him. I mean, he chose not to play for the Flyers, and so he didn't want it. So he said, you know what, F this team. I'm trying to get out of here because I don't want to play with you guys for whatever reason that may be for him. I don't know why he didn't want to play for Philadelphia. It's the city of brotherly love, so probably going to treat you nicely if you gave him a chance, but he decided he didn't want to play for them. So because of that, the fans responded in not so much of a good way, chanting F you and calling him an a-hole. But after the game from Cody Gauthier, he said this, and I quote, "I'm not here to please everyone. I'm here to do what's best for me. Flyers fans might think that's selfish right there, but hey, if you're trying to work what's best for you, I mean, it's fine. I mean, just go with it. I mean, just do you. But the Flyers fans are going to think that you're being selfish and you're choosing not to play for the Flyers. I mean, the Flyers, I mean, they probably don't care now. I mean, they chanted Jamie's better after Jamie Drysdale scored that goal on John Gibson. They chanted Jamie's better. And they just gave him street. So it was like kind of a odd game, and I'm pretty sure Cody Gauthier will remember that night. I mean, it was just crazy. But like I said, at first I didn't know why he was getting all this hate. But I did my background, I did my research, and I figured out why. So yeah. But this game in Philadelphia, it was physical. It had a lot of hits. A lot of fight, well, not a lot of fights, but few fights, few scrimmage in the corner and stuff. Flyers had 29 hits. Ducks had 31 hits in the game. And not only did the Flyers get the shutout win over the Anaheim Ducks, but they also swept their season series against them. They won 3-1 in Anaheim on December 28th. That was actually Cody Gauthier's first game against the Philadelphia Flyers in that game. And obviously he did not score in the win. At least I don't think he scored in that loss to the Flyers on December 28th. And then they were shut out. And then they shut out the Ducks 6-0 on January 11th. So that's just my recap of Cody Gauthier's night. Obviously not a good one, but like I said, Cody Gauthier didn't mind. He's not here to please everyone. He's here to do what's best for him. Kind of like what CM Punk said, and I like CM Punk. I mean, he's one of my favorite WWE wrestlers. But when he came back to WWE, he said this: "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money." So, yeah. But that match on the debut of Raw on Netflix against Seth Rollins was a good match. CM Punk got the win. So I kind of compared what Cody Gauthier said to CM Punk's statement. But like I said, I like CM Punk. He's from Chicago. One of my favorite WWE wrestlers. I like his finisher, Go to Sleep. He's a great WWE wrestler to watch. So kind of compared that statement to CM Punk's statement when he came back to WWE, because obviously he was in the AEW, which stands for All Elite Wrestling, and then he came back to WWE because he did quit WWE, I think 11 years ago, went to AEW, then came back to WWE. So, yeah. But I thought it was a great game between the Flyers and the Ducks nonetheless. Matej Michkov scored in the win. Jamie Drysdale got a goal against his former team. I think Travis Konechny had a few points in that win as well. So, yeah. All right, transitioning to that game, to Eric Staal's retirement night in Carolina. So he got his number 12 retired by the Carolina Hurricanes Sunday. He is the fourth Carolina Hurricanes player to have his number retired. And so he joins Glenn Wesley, who had his number 2 retired. Ron Francis, as you guys may know, he's the general manager of the Seattle Kraken. He had his number 10 retired by the Carolina Hurricanes. And, of course, Rod Brindamore, who's the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. He had his number 17 retired. And Eric Staal played for the Carolina Hurricanes 12 seasons. His brother, Jordan Staal, currently plays for the Carolina Hurricanes. He's actually their team captain. But Eric Staal played for the Hurricanes 12 seasons from 2003 to 2015. Drafted by Carolina as the number 2 pick in the 2003 NHL Draft. He had 775 points in 909 games played with the Hurricanes, so 322 goals, 453 assists for 775 points in 909 games played. He won the Stanley Cup with the Carolina Hurricanes in 2006. He was actually the leading point scorer in the 2006 Stanley Cup playoffs, which he had 28 points in 25 games played, so 9 goals, 19 assists for 28 points in 25 games played. I don't know how he didn't win the Conn Smythe Trophy then. He was leading point scorer and doing everything he could for Carolina during that playoff run. Excuse me. And his best season was the 2005-2006 season, where he had 100 points in that season. So 45 goals, 55 assists for 100 points, 82 games. That was his best season. And he was the captain of the Hurricanes for 7 seasons from 2009, I believe, to 2016, 2009, 2016, team captain of the Hurricanes. He was traded from Carolina to New York, so I'm guessing that was during the 2016 NHL trade deadline. Like I said, he was team captain then from 2009 to 2016. And he's the team's all-time leader in games played, which is 909. Goals, which is 322, assists 453, and points 775 since the franchise relocated from Hartford. Of course, they used to be called the Hartford Whalers back then, now called the Carolina Hurricanes, as we all know. And they reached the playoffs twice in 12 seasons with the Hurricanes, and Eric Staal had retired after the 2022-23 season. So his last team that he played for was the Florida Panthers. And, of course, they reached the Stanley Cup Final 2023, and then they lost to the Golden Knights. A year later, they won the Stanley Cup. So Eric Staal could have won his second Stanley Cup if he decided to retire after the 2023-24 season. But nonetheless, he had a great career. He had 1,063 points in 1,365 games played. So 455 goals, 608 assists for 1,063 points in 1,365 games played with the Carolina Hurricanes, New York Rangers, Minnesota Wild, Buffalo Sabres, Montreal Canadiens, and Florida Panthers. So, congrats to Eric Staal on his number 12 getting retired. Best on his retirement. I'm going to miss him in the NHL. So, yeah. All right, moving on to the next news. Could David Carl be the next Blackhawks head coach? So, it's been a lot of talk about David Carl becoming the NHL head coach. What the future is going to look like for David Carl. I mean, we know he's not going to be at University of Denver not too long. He currently is the head coach of the Denver Pioneers, and he's had some success with the Denver Pioneers and in the World Juniors, most recently winning back-to-back gold medals with Team USA in the World Juniors, and then he's won 2 national championships with the University of Denver, so he's had a lot of success. All he does is win, no matter what. Reference from DJ Khaled. But could David Carl be the next Blackhawks head coach? And I'm not just saying could he be the next Blackhawks head coach. Could he be an NHL head coach is primarily the topic. But for the Blackhawks, they need a head coach that has a winning strategy, that has a winning method, because the Blackhawks are currently struggling as of late. And they're currently last in the league, last in the Central Division. So they desperately need a coach who knows how to win. And the Blackhawks, of course, they fired head coach Luke Richardson on December 5th, 2024 after a poor start to the season, like always. And Anders Sorensen became the Blackhawks interim head coach. And before his interim role, he was the head coach of the Rockford IceHawks, who will be hosting the 2026, AHL All-Star Classic next year in February. And in his 3 seasons with the Rockford IceHawks, Anders Sorensen was 117, 89, and 16 with the Rockford IceHawks. So Kyle Davidson appointed him as the Blackhawks interim head coach after they fired Luke Richardson. But I think he should pick up the phone, Kyle, and make David Carl the next Blackhawks head coach. But other potential candidates in mind, if David Carl decides he doesn't want to be an NHL head coach, and he said this kind of stuff before in the interview. I heard him say this in the interview. He don't know what's next for him, and that's totally fine. I mean, that's totally fine. I mean, I like the statement what he said. He doesn't know what the future holds. That's a perfectly good statement. Am I right? I mean, that's a perfectly good statement. You want to think this through. You want to think, do I want to become the next? Do I want to become a coach in the NHL? Do I want to stay with the University of Denver? Like, what's next for me? What's next for David Carl? So I liked what he said in the interview. He was on NHL Network NHL Tonight first shift, and I listened to him. He said the same statements like I'm saying to you guys right now. If you're watching on YouTube and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio, he said this stuff before. So if he doesn't work out, I think the Blackhawks should go after Jay Woodcroft. Of course, he used to coach the Oilers. Gerard Gallant, he's led the Golden Knights to the Stanley Cup Final in 2018 in their inaugural season. He could be a potential fit for the Blackhawks. Or maybe, and I may be delusional when I say this, go after Mike Babcock. Of course, Mike Babcock, he's won the Stanley Cup before. He won the Stanley Cup with the Red Wings in 2008. And, of course, he's a great NHL coach to go after. So I was delusional when I said that, but could be a choice. So if David Carl does not work out, well, those are the head coaches that the Blackhawks should go after. Of course, the Blackhawks had a bad weekend, losing their back-to-back games to the Red Wings and Oilers, and they play the Flames today, which hopefully they can get a win over Calgary, because losing in back-to-back games this past weekend, just come on now. Like, how do you even lose to Detroit Red Wings anyway? I mean, I know they got Todd McCullough as their head coach now, but that should have been a win over Detroit. But we all knew it was going to be a gutsy performance. Well, not gutsy performance, but we all know it was going to be tough playing the Edmonton Oilers. So I can understand the loss to Edmonton, but come on, we should have got a win over Detroit. And speaking of other games from this past weekend, Alex Ovechkin, he scored goal number 873 in the Capitals' 4-1 win over the Nashville Predators. He also had an assist in the win. He's now 22 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. And with the win for the Capitals, they moved to 28, 10, and 5 for the season, and they extend their point streak to 7 games. They're 4-0-3 during that span. And Alex Ovechkin, he becomes the second player in NHL history to score at least 20 goals in 20 straight seasons. And the only player with the most is Gordie Howe, which he's done it in 22 seasons. Ethan Frank, he scored his first NHL goal in the win in his second career NHL game. He made his NHL debut with the Capitals at home against the Montreal Canadiens. I think that was a Friday game from last week, and the Canadiens won in overtime. In that game, Nick Suzuki with the overtime game-winning goal in that game. Tom Wilson and Andrew Mangiapane also scored for Washington, while Logan Thompson made 32 saves in the win. And for the Predators, Philip Forsberg, who was drafted by the Washington Capitals, scored in the loss. And UC Saros made 12 saves in the loss. And the Predators have lost 2 in a row. They moved to 13, 22, and 7 of the season. Nashville continues their 5-game homestand against the Golden Knights Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And the Capitals return home to take on the Ducks Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Hopefully Al Ovechkin can put up more goals because like every hockey fan and possibly, every sports fan that is, an avid fan of hockey or that tunes into hockey every now and then, they probably want to see Alex Ovechkin break the record as well. So just like every hockey fan and every sports fan that kind of tunes in wants to see it happen. So yeah. All right, NHL games on the slate. There's only 3 games on the slate for today, so not a busy day of hockey, but of course I'll be covering and reporting for the Chicago Blackhawks, of course. So as you guys know, I am a Blackhawks, Porter, fan-sided. Make sure you go check out the preview article of tonight's game against Calgary. And also follow me on Twitter for all the Blackhawks news and updates as well. So make sure you do that. But NHL games on the slate. There's only 3 games on the slate. Not a busy day of hockey. So the Florida Panthers will be taking on the Philadelphia Flyers at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Last meeting of the season between the two teams. They won 4-3 in the shootout back on November 9th at home. And they won 7-5 in the city of brotherly love on December 5th. So the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions, will look to complete the series sweep in this one. And then, like I mentioned, we got the Calgary Flames coming to the Chi-City, to the United Center, taking on the Chicago Blackhawks at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. This will air on NHL Network for U.S. residents, and this will be on Amazon Prime for Canada residents. Last meeting of the season between the two teams, the Flames won the first 2 meets, both of which were in Calgary. They won 3-1 on October 15th, and they won 6-4 on December 21st. And then the last game of the night, LA Kings taking on the Edmonton Oilers at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Second of 4 meets this season. The Kings won the first meet back in LA, 4-3 in overtime on December 28th. Quentin Byfield had 2 goals in that game, one of them being the overtime game-winning goal. And these two teams will meet again on April 5th in LA and on April 14th in Edmonton. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Make sure to give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button on the YouTube. It's right there, like right at the bottom, like not the bottom, but right hand side of your screen. Just hit that big red subscribe button. It really helps me out. It really helps get the podcast out to more people who wants to tune in. This is your number 1 podcast for all things hockey, so make sure you give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. But nonetheless, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed, and I will see you guys Wednesday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.